over the weekend, Russian state regime media continued to talk about how Donald Trump and Putin are now fully aligned on their attacks of NATO, Ukraine, and Europe. Americans are rising up against Donald Trump. Trump's approval is tanking fast. Donald Trump, I think, realizing that he is a cornered rat.
Отвечает на вопросы по поводу пресс-конференции.
When Trump is answering questions about the press conference, I think it is not a coincidence that many of the narratives that are being voiced largely materialized after their conversation.
80% of Americans think the economy's in the toilet, but here's the kicker. The numbers tell a completely different story. So what's really going on? Are we all living in some bizarre parallel universe where facts don't matter anymore? Or is there something more sinister at play? The truth might just make your blood boil.
Then the United States Secretary of Defense, who has no experience to hold that position, former Fox host Pete Hegseth, who never commanded any military before holding this position.
Но фразы, которые он дает,
The phrases he is saying are so deep and so correct. They are in total alignment with the way we see things.
Pete Hegseth said that he refused to say whether Russia was the aggressor or not in Russia's unlawful invasion of Ukraine, quite literally spewing Russian propaganda.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Trump's been banging on about how 80% of Americans reckon the economy's gone down the toilet. But hang on a minute. Let's take a closer look at what's really going on here. The Donald's been painting a pretty grim picture of our financial situation, hasn't he? He's been telling anyone who'll listen that we're all struggling to make ends meet.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Over the weekend, folks, there were elections that were held in Germany. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, and the MAGAs supported Germany's neo-Nazi AfD party.
Zelensky should come to the table because this economic partnership is an important thing for the future of his country, and we hope that he will very soon.
But fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
The AfD party came in second. They did not win. The CSU-CDU party, led by Friedrich Merz, who will become the next chancellor, they prevailed in the election. Merz will become the next chancellor.
That inflation's eating us alive, and that Biden's policies are driving the country into the ground. It's a narrative that's been gaining traction, especially among his supporters. But here's where it gets interesting. The numbers tell a completely different story. We're talking about an economy that's been firing on all cylinders. Unemployment rates have been plummeting, hitting record lows not seen in decades. Wages have been on the up and up, with workers finally seeing some decent pay rises after years of stagnation. And let's not forget the stock market. It's been on a tear, breaking records left, right, and center. So why the massive disconnect? Why are so many people buying into Trump's doom and gloom when the economic indicators are flashing green? Well, it's not just about numbers, is it? It's about how people feel, and that's where Trump's got a bit of an edge.
Germany now views America basically no different than they view Putin. That's what Donald Trump has done to the United States, and how Donald Trump has turned Europe and NATO and Canada and all of our traditional allies against the United States. In his acceptance speech after becoming the next chancellor, the presumptive chancellor, Friedrich Merz said that Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Washington were now, quote, no less radical and outrageous than that of Moscow. Furthermore, over the weekend, Donald Trump appointed the podcast host and conspiracy theorist who never worked a day in the FBI.
You see, Trump's got a knack for tapping into people's fears and frustrations, even when things are actually looking up. He's a master at channeling that gut feeling of unease that many Americans have about their financial future. It doesn't matter if the statistics say one thing. If people feel like they're struggling, that's what they'll believe. But here's the kicker. The economy under Biden was actually outperforming expectations. We're talking about a recovery that's been faster and stronger than many economists predicted. Yet Trump's narrative is shaping public opinion. opinion in a way that's at odds with the economic reality. It's a bit like that old saying about perception being reality. Trump's managed to convince a significant chunk of the population that things are worse than they actually are. And in politics, sometimes that's all that matters. But hold on to your hats, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. The disconnect between Trump's claims and the economic reality goes deeper than just public perception. It's a masterclass in political messaging, one that's got economists and political analysts scratching their heads just when you thought Trump's economic claims were raising eyebrows. His recent comments on NATO and Ukraine have left even his staunchest supporters scratching their heads. But here's the kicker. It's not just what Trump's saying that's causing concern. It's who's cheering him on. Remember when Trump promised to be tough on Russia? Well, it seems Putin's propaganda machine didn't get the memo. Russian state media is practically throwing a ticker tape parade for Trump's latest statements, describing them as deep and correct. It's like watching your ex's new partner liking all their Instagram posts. Unsettling, to say the least. But this isn't just about Trump cozying up to Russia. It's about how his words are reshaping America's image on the global stage. And let me tell you, it's not a pretty picture. European leaders, once steadfast allies, are now looking at the US with the same side eye they reserve for Moscow. Take Germany's new chancellor, Friedrich Merz. He's not mincing words when he says figures like Trump and Elon Musk are now seen as no less radical and outrageous than that of Moscow. Let that sink in for a moment. Our European allies are lumping us in with the very nation we've spent decades trying to keep in check. It's like showing up to a black tie event in a clown costume. People are going to talk, and not in a good way. And it's not just talk. The recent German election saw the far-right Alternative for Germany, AfD party, you know, the one Trump's been palling around with, come in second place. It's as if Trump's influence is creating a ripple effect across the Atlantic, pushing even our closest allies towards the fringes. But wait, there's more. Trump's special envoy to Ukraine has been echoing some troubling sentiments. They're suggesting that NATO's expansion was a threat to Russia, essentially blaming the West for provoking the war. It's the kind of rhetoric you'd expect to hear from the Kremlin, not from a US official. This isn't just a difference of opinion, it's a fundamental shift in how America is perceived on the world stage. The alignment between Trump's rhetoric and Russian propaganda isn't just a war of words. It's having real, tangible consequences for NATO's unity and the West's ability to respond to Russian aggression. When America starts sounding like Russia's spokesperson, it doesn't just confuse our allies, it emboldens our adversaries. Trump's plummeting approval ratings aren't just a numbers game, they're a stark reminder of the dangerous disconnect between political narratives and cold, hard facts. Only 35% of Americans trust Trump at all, a figure that should make us all sit up and take notice. But here's the real kicker. Can economic realities and factual evidence ever truly overcome the power of political spin? As voters, we've got a responsibility to look beyond the flashy rhetoric and dig into the facts. It's not just about Trump versus Biden anymore. It's about truth versus fiction. Experts are sounding the alarm that persistent political narratives contradicting economic realities could lead to long-term distrust in our democratic institutions. And let's face it, that's a slippery slope none of us want to slide down. So what's the solution? Media literacy, critical thinking, and fact-checking resources are our best weapons in this information war. It's time we all stepped up to the plate and became our own fact-checkers. After all, if we can't trust our politicians to tell us the truth, who can we trust?